Perhaps by this time you've watched a video that Barb and I have done about the 9 myths of separation and divorce. I want to tell you now that I have 3 thoughts that almost always precede failure. In other words, even when parents understand, okay, now I get it, this really is not a competition, it's really the ultimate call to cooperation. We really don't have legal disputes, we have mom and dad issues. We don't really have a win-lose thing. This is something where we're going to win or lose together depending on how well we focus on the kids and making our own decisions and making this about the future. Even parents who get that, when they get one of the 3 thoughts that I'm going to mention to you right now, they are on the verge of failing. So look out for these 3 thoughts. Here they are. Failure thought number 1, my children get what they need if I get what I want. My children get what they need if I get what I want. Sometimes, and these thoughts can infect the thinking of even the most caring parents, but the thought can be, well, wait a minute, yes, my children are entitled to a good childhood, they're entitled to a good world to live their one and only childhood, they're entitled to peace of mind, they're entitled to the advantages that other children have who come from happy, intact families, or from families where the parents have divorced, but they are respectful and predictable. But you know what? I didn't get the hand-embroidered footstool, or I'm paying $10 a week more in child support. I'm getting $10 less a week than I should get, and therefore my kids don't. That's not really the way you want to think. What you want to remember is that your children are entitled to a good and wonderful world to live their one and only childhood, whether or not every single issue that you have between you and your co-parent is one where you get exactly what you want. All right, the second failure thought is, this is too hard. This is too hard. And very often I will hear parents say, just before they fail, and we hope that failure is only temporary, this just got too hard. So we have to go back to being in conflict, going to court, suing each other, doing all these things that really they should know, and they really do in their moments of clear thinking, will be destructive to them and their children. But the thought is one of, this just got too hard, it got too difficult. Well, a couple things I want to say about that. Number one, we don't allow ourselves that freedom of failure in anything else with our kids. We can't say, well, wait a minute, this got to be kind of difficult to have to feed them, you know. I have to feed them every day. In fact, I have to feed them 2 or 3 times every day. And, you know, sometimes they don't even appreciate it. Sometimes they don't even finish it. And I'm going to have to do this. It's too hard to do it. We don't allow ourselves to fail there, and we can't allow ourselves to fail in co-parenting. The other thought I have about this one comes from I think the movie's name is League of Their Own, but you remember when Jimmy Dugan, the coach, played by Tom Hanks, looks at the players crying and says, "Are you crying? Are you crying?" There's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in baseball. I want to say that we should say to ourselves, there's no failing in co-parenting. There's no failing in parenting. We have to succeed at this. Is it difficult? Are there hard times? Yes. But that's what we can be most proud of, is that we overcame those, we made sacrifices for our kids, and it was on the basis of that and our focus on them that we succeeded. And finally, failure thought number 3. My co-parent isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. My co-parent isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Well, let's be careful about that. First of all, that sounds a little bit like the schoolyard. He started it or she started it. But the other thing we have to remember is it may be exactly in those moments that our co-parent is not doing what they're supposed to be doing that we have to be most heroic. And the analogy we sometimes use with parents is if your children were caught in a burning building and you ran to save them, but on your way into the building you saw your co-parent just sitting on the curb not doing anything, would you say, well, that's it, I'm not going in either? No, you'd run all the faster, because on this particular day, on this particular occasion, in this particular emergency, you're the only candidate. You're the only person apparently willing to be a hero, and it is our co-parent's failure at that moment that should induce us to be all the more heroic. The same thing if our co-parent just was not giving the kids good, nutritious food. They were feeding the kids candy and such for all their meals. Would we say, well, that's it, I'm not going to feed them anything either. Here's Mars bars at my house too. We wouldn't do that. But sometimes in the competitive business, or it feels like the competitive business of raising kids after separation or divorce, we can start thinking that our co-parents' failures is an excuse for us to fail too. It's just the opposite. It's actually a call for the hero in us to wake up and step forward. There you have them, 3 failure thoughts, and I think in one variation or another, one of those usually precedes the thinking of a parent before they say, that's it, I give up, we're going back into being conflict. And we hope we can always rescue them and bring them back to the core principles that, look, if you're in conflict, your children are in danger. Therefore, only you can protect them. And most important, of course, remember that when you're protecting your children and focusing on them, giving them a good world to live their one and only childhood, making sacrifices for that. Even you are better off. You're better off legally, financially, and certainly as a parent. So, but be careful of these thoughts infiltrating any of your thinking. They can cause a lot of problems. I wish you the very best.